Let's be honest. We've all been there. You're crushing a new habit. You're hitting the gym every morning. Maybe you're finally flossing regularly. And I don't mean with the little picks. I mean with real, hardcore, old school floss twisted around your fingers. Maybe you're bettering yourself. You're learning a new language. You're taking some continuing education courses. You're reading more actual books. You're going at it. You're feeling good. And then life happens. It happens. And you miss a day. Maybe you stack it. You miss two. And then the inner voice, the critic, he's chiming in with, "You're so lazy. You never stick to anything." Oh, let me tag in my boy Depression over here. He's going to tell you all about how comfortable it would be just to quit. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Sounds familiar. That is the sound of shame and blame derailing your progress. Shame and blame. It's an aggressive voice. It's an angry voice. It's a twin attack. And it's a sound we need to silence. Thank you for joining me here on Sane Enough. I'm Coach Eric, and today we're taking on the two-headed monster that's rattling around in your skull right now. That is shame and their twin blame. And I know. You've heard it before. It's not shame. All that negativity, that's motivation. And blame, I mean, come on. That's external. I thought you were talking about voices in my head. Look, shame and blame, they masquerade as things they aren't, right? They love to be motivation. Because motivation takes a negative and makes it a positive. And that kind of reframing can work. But shame's not motivation. No, shame is a cancer that eats at your progress. And blame is a tricky guy. Blame comes in a couple of different forms, where blame convinces you that everybody else is blaming you. Blame gets you to blame you. And then blame flips the script and gets you to take something that you could directly affect and blame somebody else for it. Oh, shame and blame. I'm telling you, brutal. They will beat you up. And it's funny because while they're beating you up, you're going to trick yourself into thinking that you're trying to make yourself better. Oh, but it's the worst. They are so good at this because what they're really doing, shame loves to breed avoidance. So now you feel guilty because you skipped that morning workout. And the next day you're like, well, I mean, I didn't go yesterday. I can miss 2 days. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. And then you're at day 3 and you're like, well, I don't want them to think I'm a slacker. I mean, all those other guys, they're sitting there, they're pumping iron. All the girls on the step machines. I mean, they're going to know I missed. And they're going to think less of me. And I'm going to think less of me. And I just can't do that. And then it's like, well, day 4, I can't go. Those guys are all a bunch of jerks. I've missed 3 days. If I go now, they're just going to pick on me. They're just going to be jerks. It's their fault I'm not going to go today. Oh, and it gets harder and harder with every single day. The gym goes from being a resource for better health. It goes from being a sanctuary where you're there with yourself, with your thoughts, with your fitness, with your effort. No, it starts becoming a cesspool of shame, a cesspool of blame. It starts becoming the source of the negativity that it was supposed to help you vanquish by improving your health, by improving your fitness, by improving your self-image. Because the gym is a tool. The gym is a place. The gym is full of resources that are there for positive reinforcement. Now, I'm not saying there aren't negative reinforcement at the gym. Of course there is. There's negative reinforcement everywhere. But the idea behind the gym, the money-making part of the gym for the owner, is that people feel welcome to come and belong there, right? But shame doesn't care about that. Shame's there to fuel your self-sabotage. Shame's just like, hey, man, you already screwed that up. What's the point? You skipped a day, and you know what? Why are we bothering with a salad tonight? Let's get a large pie, eat the whole pizza ourselves. You know what? Let's not even get veggies on it. Let's go triple meat. I'm talking pepperoni, sausage, and no, not chicken, bacon. Let's rock. And you're going to eat that feeling gross and mad at yourself. I'm not saying don't ever eat pizza. Heck, I love pizza. Don't like bacon on pizza, but shame apparently does. No, shame is sitting there making you feel like a failure and then reinforcing negative behaviors so that you'll dig that hole deeper. And shame wins. And the best part for shame is you're going to get so mad and upset with yourself that you're going to start looking for outside sources to blame. And you're going to pile it on and pile it on and pile it on. And before you know it, you're blaming yourself, you're blaming your mom, you're blaming the guy at the weight bench next to you, you're blaming the girl who's rocking the squat bar, you're blaming the step instructor, everybody else to blame, and secretly you're sitting there at home eating the whole quart of ice cream, blaming yourself for being weak. And why? Why are you blaming yourself for being weak? Because you made a mistake? Because you missed a day? Life goes on. But shame wants to drag it to a halt. Shame thinks you're a failure, and shame insists on you believing you're a failure. And blame wants you to know that since you're a failure, it's all your fault. But here's the critical thing. Habit formation is a process. We talk about processes all the time, right? And it's not a perfect process. It's a process of trial and error. So what does that mean? Lapses are normal. Think about that. Failure is part of the journey. Lapses are part of the journey. We talk about, on Sane Enough, taking this mental performance journey, right? And that just sounds like, oh, that's guru speak for this is going to take forever, so you better pay me lots. No, it is great marketing. I'm not going to lie. But the truth of the matter is it's also accurate. We can't fix our mental weaknesses, our mental lapses, our mental performance missteps by taking a magic pill. There's no antibiotic for it. Wish there was. There's not. There's no magic one-day course that you can hammer out. You can't take a week and say, hey, I'm just going to focus on me, and it's all going to be better. It's a process. It's a journey, and it's sometimes a lifelong one. And why shouldn't it be? Don't you want to get better from whatever you are today? And in 3 weeks, if you're better than you are today, won't you want to get better than you are in 3 weeks? The key, and we've talked about this before, is having realistic goals, realistic expectations, and knowing that you're not always going to be perfect. Chasing perfection is a great way for shame and blame to work their way in. So what do? We know it's part of the journey, but we don't like it. We don't really know how to deal with it, and nobody wants to talk about it because we want to sell ourselves on the idea that the journey is a positive experience. How can lapses and negativity be part of that? Well, you got to kind of reframe that. Instead of saying what happened, right? Ask yourself how it happened. Okay, you already really know what happened, so by hammering on that, you're focusing on the negative. Say, okay, well, how did it happen? What was the process that got me there, right? So once you've established the how, then you can get into the what can I do differently next time? Don't focus on the what you didn't do this time. We already did that. We know what, we know how. That stuff's just old news. That's history. The future is not doing it again, right? And figuring out how to take steps to minimize the number of lapses you're going to have that come from that how. And that's how you stay out of the cycle of lapses, right? That's how you get out of that bad death spiral, that loop where you just failure after failure after failure because you're so afraid of the failure you've already had being seen, and you feel so guilty about the failure you've already had being seen that you just hide yourself, right? And you don't want to go back out there. Instead, step out of that cycle and say, everybody fails. I know what I did wrong. I know how I did it wrong. I know when I did it wrong. And I can take these steps to get back on track and throw all that other mess out the door. So shame's sitting here and it's watching you and it's thinking, no. You can't get out of the cycle. I'm playing defense. Shame is all about defense. It feels like an aggressive voice, but it's actually not. It's a preventative voice. So you're really stressed at work, right? And you need some comfort food. I mean, you are genuinely exhausted. You need to chill, right? But your schedule says that after work, you have to go do this activity that is meant to make you better. Maybe it's working out, maybe it's reading, going to a movie, going on a date. And you just don't feel like it. You don't have it in you. So you cancel because you were legitimately not in a good place to do whatever it was that was on the schedule, right? Maybe it wasn't even your fault. Maybe you weren't even tired or exhausted. You were ready and raring to go, and a phone call came in from your boss, from your mom, from your brother, from your sister. Somebody interrupted your flow, right? And you decided that took precedent over whatever that activity was. And that could be completely a legitimate reason, right? The other day, I was coming home from dropping off my kid at practice, and my youngest brother called. I'm the oldest of four. I dropped everything to talk to him. I don't talk to him very often. I'm significantly older than he is. We never lived together. And while I love him dearly, we're not in each other's everyday lives. He lives many hours away. And so when he calls, it's usually either something really, really important or it's a holiday. Well, it wasn't a holiday. So instead of what I'd planned to do, I pumped the brakes and I talked to him. Now, it turned out to be a great thing. He was coming in town. It was going to be a surprise. He was bringing his new girlfriend. He didn't want my mom to know, but since she was in town also, he was going to come rolling in around 4 o'clock. I said, well, T, that's great. But around 4 o'clock, Mom wants to do dinner because we're doing what we call dinner tonight. So let me work this out. I'll bring in dinner as carry out instead of us going out, and I'll meet you in the driveway. So that's what we did. He called me from 20 minutes out. I ran down to the carry out, get to the door with the food, and the first thing Grandma, my mom, sees is her youngest son standing in the driveway with his girlfriend. Great moment for everybody. Completely screwed up my afternoon. All right. I was supposed to be doing some things that were productive. I was supposed to be working on the episode that I'm working on right now. But that took precedent. It took precedent. It was important to me, right? So whether I was sick with the flu, whether I was just exhausted from a hard day, or whether T came in town unexpectedly, my schedule changed. And of course, shame told me last night that I shouldn't go to bed. I should sit up and I should knock out this episode. I didn't do it. I didn't do it because I understood that if I did that, I was going to put myself in a bad position today to do the things I needed to do this morning. I had a very busy morning. I'd have been exhausted. I'd have been not what I needed to be. And then shame could have jumped on me for that. Well, if you hadn't slacked off on Sunday afternoon, then you wouldn't have had to stay up late Sunday night. And then you wouldn't have been useless Monday morning. And then, maybe I start getting mad at T, man. Why is he coming in town without telling me ahead of time? What a jerk. He's got to at least give me a couple days notice. Doesn't he know I've got a life too? And you start getting mad. Over what? Over a great experience, a great day. But it's the way you frame it. It's the way you look at it. It's the way you decide. Am I mad because the plans I had got wiped out? Or am I glad that I got to have something different? Am I mad that I was too tired to go to the gym? Or am I glad I went to bed early and I feel a lot better the next day? Am I mad that I got sick and couldn't do the trip that I wanted to take? Or am I glad that I didn't get sick on the trip to where I'm already out there and it's ruined? And now I can get myself healthy and go revisit that trip opportunity. A lot of that is how you frame it. But shame doesn't care about any of that. Shame's like, no, we're not listening to any of that nonsense. You aren't good enough. You screwed up. This isn't the schedule we agreed to. You'll never get it all done. You can't do it. And it just starts eroding that motivation. It erodes your willingness to reframe it and to look at it. It just beats you down until you're just hiding your head because you can't believe everything always goes so terribly wrong for you. But the truth of the matter is, when you're constantly berating yourself and you're constantly belittling yourself, not only are you preventing yourself from accomplishing the task that you had the lapse in, but you're crushing your motivation across the board. Your whole calendar becomes really, really intimidating when one mistake on one task, when one lapse, when one unscheduled reschedule jumps into your calendar, when that's enough to set you down. Shame is demotivating you for everything else that you could be accomplishing, even if it's unrelated to the task that caused you to feel shame in the first place. It's insidious. Shame and blame are saboteurs. When it comes to building healthy habits, when it comes to maintaining a schedule, when it comes to setting goals, when it comes to performing at your best or improving your performance, shame and blame are there to sabotage you, man. They are there to make you stop yourself. So while initially it can feel motivating, oh man, you're so fat. You got to lose the weight. You got to get back up on that bike. And then you get back up on that bike and you do it and you're like, yeah, shame motivated me. It got me going again this time. It got you going again this time. Is that really sustainable? If every time you go to do something, you've got to beat yourself down, is that really sustainable? Or is that going to start eating away at your motivation? Are you going to start questioning whether what you're doing is even working? Why am I even getting on this bike? I'm still fat. I was fat a month ago and I'm fat now. And every time I get on this bike, I have to tell myself how fat I am. It's just not going to work. It's not going to work. It's damaging. It's counterproductive. Shame can get you there the first time. And it's willing to sacrifice that first time because it knows it's a toxic cycle. It knows it is. It's going to undermine your efforts because in the long run, it's going to make you less likely to succeed. So let's break it down. Shame breeds avoidance. When we experience shame related to habit lapse, related to reschedules, related to self-esteem, our natural instinct is to avoid that situation again because that situation triggered the shame. So we associate that situation with a negative, which is great for shame because it loves to be associated with negatives, right? And it loves guilt. The second big thing with shame is it'll capitalize on your guilt. So when you feel guilty about something that you made a mistake on, something you missed the timing on, something that was a lapse, when you feel guilty about what you ate that day, shame compiles that, takes all that guilt and just stacks it together and makes a big guilt sandwich for you. If you're ashamed of your food choices today, you might decide that you just don't want to think about nutrition anymore at all. I mean, why even bother? You've got all this chicken breast in the freezer and all this fruit on the counter, and you got the asparagus in the refrigerator, and you just went to the fast food place again and got a big old white bag full of delicious greasiness. So why do we even bother thinking about it? Well, that's just shame. It's just shame breeding avoidance. It's reinforcing the negative association of that habit, not to motivate you. No. It wants to make it even harder for you to go back to that habit. Shame fuels sabotage. The second big thing with shame is that it fuels sabotage. So it fuels avoidance and it fuels sabotage. So even if you get back to trying to do it, shame's like, nah, I got this. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You believe you're bad because shame's told you you're bad. And then you screw up and it reminds you how bad you are. So then every time you screw up, it just piles on the bad, right? It ignores all the good. Shame's never going to tell you, well, you went 6 days in a row. No, it's going to say you missed day 7. And you know what? You missed a day about a week ago too. Yeah, that's right. Why are you even bothering? And what ends up happening, we'll use food again. What ends up happening here is shame piles it on and piles it on and piles it on. It's like, look, you're supposed to have a salad. You went for fast food. You had all that chicken in the freezer. You went for fast food. So you've already screwed up a couple times this week. What's the point? And so shame gets you to order the large pizza, get out the quart of ice cream, and just pound it. You're gorging on it. Why? Because you're on a full-blown binge caused by the stress of having made a mistake. And so you're saying, well, but why would I do that? I make an even bigger mistake. Well, shame's already told you it's useless to keep trying. So if I'm going to screw up, I'm going to screw up big. And you just eat all of it, feel horrible about yourself. And when you wake up in the morning, shame's like, hey, dude, after last night, who are you kidding? You think you ever need to go on a diet again? So that brings us to thing 3 that shame loves to do. Not only does it love to breed avoidance, not only does it love to fuel sabotage, shame loves to impede learning and growth. Shame doesn't want you to know that this process is trial and error. No, of course not. Shame doesn't want you to know that lapses are inevitable. And what shame really, really doesn't want you to know is that not only are they inevitable, but they're a learning opportunity. Because we already talked about that, right? You can learn the what, the why, the how, and the how to avoid in the future once you've experienced the lapse. Everything is theoretical till you mess up. It's not until that moment when you're truly going to learn how to dig yourself out and get back on track. So shame prevents you from trying to learn from it. Instead of analyzing it, shame just beats you up. It wants you to get into a cycle of self-criticism instead of a cycle of self-evaluation. Think about the difference there. Are you evaluating yourself, positives and negatives? Or are you criticizing yourself, hammering those negatives? Shame wants you to be in a negative, toxic cycle of self-criticism. And that will hinder your progress. It will keep you from adapting your strategies. It'll keep you from getting back on the good cycle. And ultimately, it will diminish your mental performance for the task at hand and other tasks you have on your calendar. And the fourth thing, and we've talked about this one, fourth thing of the 6-pack of shames, big ticket items, motivation. Oh, motivation loves self-compassion. Motivation loves encouragement. Motivation loves you. It does. It loves you. And shame, Shame, on the other hand, it loves to go to war with motivation. It loves to pretend like it's motivation. You know, the old wolf in a sheep's clothing routine. Shame loves it because it knows that if it can drain you of your motivation, if it can make you think it's motivation and then show its teeth, you're going to feel hopeless. You're going to feel hopeless. And when you're constantly berating yourself for your shortcomings, not only are you going to lose the enthusiasm, you're going to lose the energy. You're going to lose the will. Motivation is more than a concept. It's a feeling. It's a vibe. It's energy. And it has a physical effect on your daily life. And as you get caught in that shame spiral and that motivation erodes away, it becomes really hard to believe in your ability to change. Giving up almost feels inevitable at that point. So what happens is now shame has set you up for its fifth big hit. And that's it's affecting your overall mental and emotional health. The constant self-criticisms, they destroy your emotional well-being. It's not just baby bruises. After a while, it tears you apart at the seams. It can lead to anxiety and depression, chronic low self-esteem. And this negative emotional state can not only interfere with your mental happiness, but it can stop you from forming healthy habits, and it can lead you down a physical health negative path. In other words, you're not just going to be mentally sick about it. You're going to be physically sick about it. You're going to feel nauseous to your stomach. You may throw up. You may get really heavy and overweight. You may get really, really skinny because you don't feel like eating and now you're underweight and not healthy. You may suddenly find your immune system isn't able to battle the way it used to. And you might just not even care. And the truth of the matter is that physical health decline is a direct reflection of the mental health decline. Because your brain powers your body. And what it's telling your body is, shut her down. So, the grand finale for shame. The big, big deal, right? When shame has got you right where it wants you. You're in the death spiral. You're physically ill. You're mentally ill. Nothing feels right. There's no motivation. The whole calendar's worthless. Why do I even try? Shame grabs its best buddy and says, hey, Blame, get in here on this six-pack. Let's get it together and create some resentment. Yeah. So now it's time for self-blaming. Oh, gosh, yeah, self-blaming. It is so incredibly damaging. Look, it's bad enough when other people blame you for stuff. And it's bad enough when you blame other people for stuff. But that's external. When it gets inside of you, when shame opens that door for blame to get inside of you, you destroy yourself. And I'm not saying it's helpful to have those external blame, right? It's not helpful for other people to blame you. It's not helpful for you to blame other people. That's destructive also. But when you let that blame get inside of you, you start letting it build and you start letting it take control. And now it's going to start shifting responsibility. It's going to help take you to a place where you no longer accept any responsibility. You might blame fate. You might blame your brain chemistry. It's not my fault. I'm just weak. You might blame your parents for giving you bad DNA. You might blame your ex-girlfriend for dumping you. You might blame your boyfriend for being too controlling. You're just going to start throwing the blame around everywhere, right? You're going to beat yourself up. You're going to beat everybody else up. So blame gets brought in here at the end to help breed resentment, because that can damage all of your relationships. If you start hating yourself and blaming your mom and blaming your dad and blaming your best friend and blaming your significant other and blaming your boss, what are the chances you're going to maintain healthy relationships with them? And if you don't maintain healthy relationships with the people you care about, well, you just gave shame all the fuel it needs to crush you down. Because shame isn't all about just the habit you lapsed on. That's not good enough for shame. Shame didn't go through all those steps of working you down. Shame didn't take the fact that you skipped your day at the gym just so it could breed avoidance. It didn't tell you the next day not to go just to fuel self-sabotage. It didn't keep you from evaluating the circumstances. It kept you in a critical loop, not just to keep you from learning and growing and getting back out of the toxic cycle. No, no, no. And it was more than just motivation that shame wanted to erode, right? Because all of that allowed it to start beating up your mental health. All of that allowed it to start beating up your physical health so that it could bring in blame, create a cycle of resentment and toxicity that could tear your whole life apart. Because then shame and blame have the full control. So what started out as an innocent enough lapse in judgment, what started out as using shame to motivate yourself to do something you needed to do, what started out as a very minor detail can snowball, can pile, can stack, can build and grow and suck in all that darkness and leave you in a place where you feel alone, you feel unwanted, you feel worthless, and you feel like you can't and shouldn't even bother trying to get out of it. That's what shame and blame can do to you. And it can start from the littlest detail. So what do you do? I mean, is there an alternative? We all have shame and blame. It's part of everything. I've already established that you're going to have lapses. You're going to make mistakes. And we've talked about the voices in your head, right? They're there. You can't do anything about it. In fact, I've told you got to talk to them. That includes shame and blame. So what do you do? Well, I know this is not going to sound manly, and it might sound a little guru-y or a little hippy-dippy or a little too soft, snowflakey for everybody. But the truth of the matter is, it really boils down to one phrase that half the population hates. It's self-compassion. Look, I get it. That sounds real mushy-gushy. That sounds real soft. That doesn't sound like a tool you can use to fix mental performance. That sounds like giving yourself a hug and saying it's all going to be all right. It's not going to be all right. The world's hard. Duh. It's hard. It's hard. And if you can't give yourself that hug, who can? If you can't forgive yourself, who can? If you can't step back, take the one good breath, if you can't look in the mirror and acknowledge, I made a mistake, I'm going to make another mistake, and the key is I got to get back up there and do it again and again and again until I make fewer mistakes. And this is how I can do that. And when I make the next mistake, we'll step back and we'll look at it again. And yeah, shame's going to kick in every now and then. I'm going to beat myself up a little bit. I know that, but that doesn't make me a worthless person. That doesn't make me a bad person. And it might be so-and-so's fault, and it might be so-and-so's responsibility to fix this. And it might be, but in the end, I am responsible for me. And I'm willing to accept me. And I'm willing to work on me. And I forgive myself. You take this approach. You give yourself the hug. You learn from your mistakes. And you minimize judgment. I'm not going to tell you no judgment. I'd love to tell you no judgment. Never judge yourself, never judge yourself, never judge yourself. You'll be so much happier. So unrealistic. I can't not judge myself. I'm judging myself right now. So let's minimize the judgments. Let's focus on analysis, not criticism. Because when you learn from the analysis, when you learn from the judgment, instead of just being critical, it allows you to move forward. And look, forward isn't always linear. Progress isn't always linear. Sometimes you have to take a step back. Sometimes you have to take a step to the side. Sometimes you got to change course. This is not a straight arrow. Now, we're going to draw a straight arrow when we do a kebab. We're going to draw a straight arrow when we do a workflow. We're going to draw a straight arrow when we map a timeline. Because that's how we imagine moving forward. But it's not. It's not a step-by-step forward motion at all costs, at all times reality. That's the theory. That's the goal. That's the stretch goal. But we have to be willing to step back, take a look and go, yep, there's going to be setbacks. Yes, there's going to be detours. Yes, there's going to be changes of directions. Yes, I'm going to screw up. But when I do, I'm going to learn from it. Even if I beat myself up, I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to go again. Because going again is how you beat shame and blame. They don't want you to go again. They want you to quit. You can't be a quitter. You can't get away from yourself. Your brain, your personality, your inner self is there. Your voices, they're there. They're not going anywhere. And as much as I'd love to give you the magic cure for having shame and blame speaking in your ear, I can't. What I can tell you is you can silence them. When they speak up, you can shut them down. It takes belief in yourself, but more importantly, it takes compassion for yourself, empathy for yourself. You have to be willing to forgive you, work on you, and move forward. So next time you slip up, and you're going to slip up, resist. See, I just slipped up. Look at that. Completely inadvertent in the wrap up. And what do? I stumble again. That's like the fourth time on this cast where I've gone and stumbled on my words. But I'm going to resist the urge to shame and blame myself. That's just part of being human. We stumble and we bumble. And I'm going to ask you to resist the urge to shame and blame yourself. Resist the urge to shame and blame others. It's really, really tempting. And shame and blame love to do this. If you find the willpower, the strength to forgive yourself, it's like, all right, cool. Then we're going to blame that guy over there. And we're going to fuel hate for that dude. Because we know the more you hate somebody else, the easier it is to hate yourself. So, resist it. Take your good deep breath. Do your box breathing. Work on your visualizations. Talk to your future self. Or send me an email. Listen to music. Find ways that you can reset and get back to work. Because that is what this is. It's about getting back to work. If you can't get back to work because you can't forgive yourself, then you can't get past it. But you can forgive yourself. You can. And that feels off at times. That feels weak at times. But it always feels good when you finally do it. It always is a relief to finally acknowledge I made a mistake and I'm going to move on and I'm going to be better for it. So, practice resilience. Practice motivating yourself with positive goals, not with negative feedback loops. And create for yourself a supportive environment so that you can form healthy habits. Look, you've got this. You do. If you don't know it yet, let me be the one who tells you. You can do it. I know you can do it if you've made it this far. If you've listened to me rant for 40 minutes about a topic as depressing as shame and blame, then you have showed the commitment to follow these steps to the best of your ability. And that's all you can ask of yourself. So get back out there, get back on the horse, get back on the track, kick it into gear, rock out, whatever phrase you like. Be a beast. Get to work. Enjoy the grind. Acknowledge the process. And have fun on the journey. So, I'm going to end this show with another song. And this one is a little different than what I've done in past episodes. Because shame and blame is a very serious topic. And it doesn't have a happy ending in and of itself. So neither does this song. This song is an honest look at the feeling of the battle between yourself and shame and its buddy blame. So enjoy the song. It's Atomic Phonographs, Shame and Blame. If you're not into it, hey, that's all right. I gave it a go. I tried. If you are into it, I really appreciate you looking it up. Spotify or whatever streaming service you like. Give it a good old thumbs up. And while you're at it, thumbs up and subscribe to my podcast here. Help build the following so that we can help not only ourselves, but more people. Leave reviews, leave comments, shoot me an email. Visit me on intracognism.com. Let me know what you think. And tune in next time for Sane Enough.
Cracked a mirror, failure nearer, staring back, I ain't no pretty sight. Another wasted day fading into night. Shame crawls up my spine, a cold clammy hand. Blame whispers in my ear, you can't understand. Shame and blame, blame and shame. You can't escape it, you have to face it. Shame and blame, they're taking a toll. Lost in the spiral, I'm losing control. Wasted the moments, buried in fear. The darkness keeps growing, it's all I can hear. Shadows creeping, whispering doubt. In the corners of my mind, I can't break out. Once there was a fire, now just smoke. Every step forward, a cruel joke. Once I saw stars, now I'm lost in the night. Drowning in silence, no more will to fight. Every chance I wasted, a weight on my soul. Can't escape the shadows, can't get on a roll. Shame and blame, blame and shame. You can't escape it, you have to face it. Shame and blame, they're taking a toll. Lost in the spiral, I'm losing control. Wasted the moments, buried in fear. The darkness keeps growing, it's all I can hear. Built these walls so high, craving warmth inside. But the cracks are showing now, nowhere left to hide. Every single step I stumble and I fall. This heavy weight of doubt's crushing me, I can't crawl. Once I saw stars, now I'm lost in the night. Drowning in silence, no more will to fight. Every chance I wasted, a weight on my soul. Can't escape the shadows, can't get on a roll.
I'm Coach Eric. Thank you for joining me today. Keep working and continue taking this journey with me here on Sane Enough.
Voices in my mind, they call my name. Whispering doubts, losing the game. Talking to myself, is reality in sight? Inner battles keep me up at night. Sane enough for a new day. Sane enough to find my way. Working on myself, building my name. Questioning doubts, changing the game. Voices are my strength, reality in sight. Talking through it, I can sleep at night. Sane enough for a new day. Sane enough to find my way. Oh! Sane enough for a new day. Sane enough to find my way.